refused to keep providing $4,000 monthly childcare for my stepdaughter, and now everyone's acting like I'm the bad guy. Hi there, welcome to Story Nest. Be sure to hit that subscribe button. It helps more than you know and ensures you don't miss any of our stories. When I was in high school, I took part in a community service program with the local court office, which eventually led to them hiring me after I graduated. I worked there for over 30 years before retiring, earning my full pension. The best part was, I could retire at any age after hitting the 30-year mark. So, once my first grandchild was born, I made the decision to retire early and devote myself to being grandma daycare. I now have 5 grandchildren, 8-year-old twins from my stepson, a 7-year-old from my son, and a 5-year-old girl along with an 18-month-old boy from my daughter. I babysit all of them without hesitation, and while it's a busy household, it's one I happily manage. For the most part, I keep the youngest one during weekdays, while the older ones visit during holidays and summers. But my stepdaughter, Tasha, and her boyfriend, Greg, have been a constant source of drama since she found out she was expecting. When she was only 10 weeks pregnant, they handed me an incredibly detailed 3-page list of rules for when I was watching their child. They made it clear that if I didn't sign the list, I wouldn't be allowed to care for the baby. I understood their concerns as new parents, but I knew there was no way I could comply with all of these rules. So I politely let them know that I wasn't offended, and if they preferred, they could find other childcare arrangements. Some of the rules were semi-reasonable, but the majority were downright outrageous. Here are a few examples. I wasn't allowed to take the baby anywhere without their prior approval, which I found absurd since I'd been babysitting for years. They insisted I could only watch one additional child at a time, and that even extended to when my own grandkids visited. I was also prohibited from cooking any meals for the baby unless they gave explicit permission, and I had to submit detailed information about any visitors, including their full names, addresses, and dates of birth. Furthermore, they wanted me to let them know if I had guests over and how long they planned to stay. They even said that my 12-year-old cat wasn't allowed in rooms where the baby might be, even when the baby wasn't present. Oh, and any future pets would need their approval, too. A few months later, when Tasha was 7 months along, they came back to me with a revised list, claiming they wanted to compromise. I gently let them know again that these rules simply didn't fit with my lifestyle. At that point, it was clear they were expecting a level of control I couldn't agree to. They needed to find a different solution. Just after Tasha went back to work, she called and asked if I could watch Cullen the following day. I agreed, but made it crystal clear that I would be providing care based on my judgment, not on their unreasonable guidelines. I told her that if there were any issues, I wasn't going to tolerate complaints about how I was doing things. It had to be understood that I was the one in charge of the care I provided. While Tasha was usually fine with how I cared for Cullen, it was Greg that made things difficult. Every time he picked Cullen up, he would act overly dramatic, often undressing him in front of me and making snide remarks about my cat or questioning whether I had any other grandchildren over. He would sometimes say things like, "I guess we don't have a choice but to leave him here," or "I'm sure you're enjoying this, huh?" It got to the point where I dreaded the start of every week, simply because I knew I'd have to deal with Greg's rudeness. This went on for months, and I spoke to Tasha about it several times. I tried explaining how unhappy I was with Greg's behavior and suggested they make other childcare arrangements. For a few days, things would improve, but it never lasted. Greg would always slip back into his disrespectful routine. The tension came to a head right around Thanksgiving. Greg made it abundantly clear that he didn't want me to have all my grandchildren over for the holiday. I wasn't about to let him dictate my family time, so I told them in no uncertain terms that I was going to have all the kids at my house for a couple of days, and they needed to find other arrangements if that bothered them. Of course, they didn't make any other arrangements, and when Greg came to pick up Cullen that first day, he was downright rude. Even though everything went smoothly, Cullen had a great day, all the grandkids were well-fed, clean, and safe, Greg couldn't keep his mouth shut. He told Cullen, in front of everyone, that he was sorry they had no choice but to leave him in such an unsafe situation where he'd be neglected. I was livid. That evening, I called Tasha and told her exactly what Greg had said. I also made it clear that she had 2 weeks to make alternate arrangements for childcare, and during that time, she was to handle the drop-offs and pickups. If Greg was involved in either of those, I wouldn't be watching Cullen anymore. Thankfully, the situation was calmer when it was just Tasha. The rest of the holiday season passed with minimal drama. But then, just after New Year's Day, I saw a post on social media that Greg had made. It wasn't directly about me, but it was obvious to anyone who knew the situation that he was implying things. He posted about how thankful he was that they no longer had to worry about leaving Cullen in an unsafe environment or feeling like he was being neglected. He didn't name me, but anyone who knew what had been going on could easily tell who he was talking about. Honestly, I was just relieved that it seemed like I was done with all of it. Then, just a few days later, Tasha called again. She told me that their new childcare provider had decided Cullen wasn't a good fit and that they couldn't keep him. She asked if I would take him back. I told her that, while I was sorry they were in this situation, I no longer felt comfortable watching him. Both my husband and stepson think I should step in and watch Cullen, especially since Tasha agreed to the condition that she drop him off and pick him up. They think the issue is mainly with Greg and that I should just do it for Cullen's sake. My stepson even mentioned that I'd probably be more willing to overlook the drama if it had been a conflict with my daughter's husband instead. At the end of the day, I'm not sure what the right answer is. I've been a stay-at-home grandma for years, and my pension gives us financial security. But the stress of dealing with Greg is getting to be too much. It's hard to balance wanting to help out with the kids while also protecting my own peace of mind. My pension is around $4,000 a month, and combined with my husband's income, that makes up roughly 40% of our total household income. While we're comfortable, I'm not willing to sacrifice my well-being just to maintain the peace with my stepdaughter's relationship. At this point, I've done my best for all the grandkids, but I have to think about what's best for me too. The whole situation with Tasha and Greg has left me feeling more drained than I care to admit. I've spent decades caring for my family, babysitting my grandkids without complaint, and trying to be the best grandma I could be. But the constant stress of dealing with their drama has taken a toll on me. Every time I think I can step away and enjoy my retirement, something else pops up. I had imagined this phase of my life as a peaceful one, watching the kids grow up, playing with them, and getting to enjoy life outside of work. Instead, I find myself in constant tension with Tasha and her boyfriend. It's hard to even get excited for holidays or family gatherings when I know there will always be an undercurrent of negativity from Greg. At this point, I'm really struggling with whether I should step back and let them figure things out themselves or continue to try and salvage what's left of our relationship. I'm not getting any younger, and I want to make sure I'm spending my time in a way that feels fulfilling, not exhausting. The stress of being questioned about every little detail of my care for Cullen just isn't something I'm willing to keep dealing with. My husband thinks I should try and help out just for Cullen's sake. After all, he's just a little boy who deserves stability. But at what cost? The last thing I want is to keep putting myself in a position where I'm constantly second-guessing myself and feeling disrespected in my own home. I know my worth, and I'm not going to let anyone take that from me, especially not Greg. I've been there for my family through thick and thin, but I also deserve to enjoy the peace that comes with retirement. In the end, the decision is mine to make. I can't let guilt or the fear of what others might think force me into something I'm not comfortable with. I've given enough to this family. Maybe it's time for me to finally take care of myself. I just hope Tasha understands and respects my decision, no matter what.